of the short story. And you guys should have gotten some handouts and so on. Don't worry about them just yet. I'll tell you when we need which handout, okay? Today, we're looking at story writing fun. So story writing should be fun. And one of the first things that I want to ask you to do is to remind me, what are the elements of the short story? Put that away, please. What are the elements of the short story? There are 5 of them. That's the hint. Yes. Climax. The climax. Chorus. Have a seat. The chorus. I have this one. Okay, and there's one more. Kenya. Thank you. Now, the thing is, that's a little bit of cheating, right? Because it's right here. So you guys should have, tuned into the story writing fun. I was hoping that you guys were, but it just shows that my students look like cheating. All right, so we have the 5 elements of the short story: the characters, the setting, the conflict, the plot. Today our lesson will focus on detailing 3 of those, and that's conflict, themes, and characters. Okay? So we'll talk a little more about those 3. Now, I'm sure, and raise your hand if you agree with me, that you've heard about characters before, you've heard about these elements before. Am I right? Yes. But if I were to ask you, what type of characters exist in a story, would you be able to answer me? Andrew? See, I have really smart students. So thank you, Andrew. We have the protagonist and antagonist, right? The wind is not working with me. Okay, so those are 2 of the terms that we're going to be discussing today. And I had them a little bit hidden because that one I didn't want you to cheat with. So the protagonist right there and the antagonist. Okay? Do you know who those are? Is there anybody in this class who don't know who the protagonist might be or who the antagonist might be? So I'm wasting my time teaching this lesson. I could go straight to the test? No. Oh, okay. So maybe we need to solidify the definitions of those, right? You've heard the terminology before, but right now we're going to give you definitions of those. Under themes, we're going to be looking at something that stays with you after you've done a story, and that is the moral, right? The moral, and we will define that. Moral isn't staying very well with me, so give me a little time so I fix that. All right, and then under conflict, what do you think we'd have under conflict? Anybody, raise your hand. Any thoughts come to mind? The problem, the types of conflict, and that's certainly where we're heading. We're heading to external conflicts and internal conflicts, right? I've just been reading the handouts ahead of time. So let's get straight into the handout, and what I will do is give you 5 minutes to go through the first handout, which is this one, right? And you will read for me the definitions of those, and then we'll get back to discussing as a whole group. So take out the handout. Did somebody move a set of handouts from here? Here it is. Okay. Can I get a volunteer to read loudly so that those people who might want to hear it? Yes, Kimberly. Thank you.
An antagonist is a character, group of characters, institution, or concept that stands in or represents a position against which the protagonist must contend. In other words, an antagonist is a person or a group of people who opposes a protagonist.
Okay?
Continue?
No. Let's put a pause in it there. What does this word sound like?
Anti.
Have you ever heard the word antagonize?
Yes.
What does it mean? Yes, Irina.
To irritate somebody.
To irritate, to provoke, to get on somebody's nerves, right? Some students antagonize teachers. That's a good antagonize sentence. So the antagonist is the person in the story, the character who gets on whose nerves? Or irritates who? The protagonist. And then, so we need to know what a protagonist is. Can I have another volunteer reader? Yes, Irene, we're reading a protagonist.
A protagonist, meaning player of the first part, chief actor, is the main character in any story, such as literary work or drama. The protagonist is at the center of the story, should be making the difficult choices and key decisions, and should be experiencing the consequences of those decisions. The protagonist can affect the main character's decisions. The protagonist should be propelling the story forward. If a story contains a subplot or is a narrative that is made up of several stories, then there may be a character who is interpreted as the protagonist of each subplot or individual story.
One thing, mispronounce the word narrative. It's not narrative, it's narrative. But that's, that's forgivable. What's another name for the protagonist when we're watching a movie, reading a book?
The hero.
That's the hero or the heroine. Come on, some heroes are not males. And so we do could you sit up for me please, Shamar? Thank you. Are you okay? All right. You don't look too okay. All right. Okay, moving on. So we know the protagonist and the antagonist, and we know that these two don't get along because the antagonist conflicts with the protagonist. Who can think of two characters that are protagonists and antagonists? Maybe in a cartoon very quickly, yes.
Batman and Joker.
Oh my goodness, anything but the exact.
I know, I said that.
Anything the exact.
I didn't hear what he said. Could you repeat?
The Batman and Joker.
Batman and Joker. Anybody else that is notoriously known for being